All right, so this is the Talking Heads podcast, and today I am joined with Dave Lee from the YouTube channel Dave Lee Down Under. How you doing, man? Thanks for coming on the show.
Not bad. Thanks for having me. How you going?
Oh, I'm doing good. Just excited to talk to you. Yeah, you produce a lot of content on your channel. Can you kind of explain what kinds of videos that you make?
Well, my main aim is to do videos about film and pop culture, basically. I have a very strong slant towards content focused on films from the Walt Disney Company, Star Wars, Marvel, all that kind of stuff. I like to cover fairly recent stuff, I guess recent movies that are in cinemas and stuff, but I do have a very big passion for older films as well. So a lot of the videos that I've been doing recently that have had a lot of really good reception have been history videos, basically on the Walt Disney Company, the classic films, the classic characters and all that kind of stuff. So I guess I cover a variety of things, but yeah, there's a very strong slant there towards Disney stuff, especially the classic films and shorts too.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think you lean towards Disney?
I've had a big passion for Disney stuff for quite a while. I guess we all grow up with Disney films.
Yeah, it's not a crazy notion, yeah.
Yeah, it's part of the lexicon of pop culture that we all grow up with. But I guess I've always been interested in cinema as well. I have a huge love for classic cinema, in particular films from the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and probably about 10 or 11 years ago, I really became invested in studying the history of the Walt Disney Studios, and I think it really goes back to when a lot of the old when a lot of the old films started coming out on Blu-ray.
Okay.
Snow White, Pinocchio. They had these really fantastic special features on there about the making of the films. Especially the Snow White disc has this documentary on there. It's like a feature-length documentary about the period in Walt's life where he was just coming off the success of all the Mickey Mouse shorts, and he wanted to create something even bigger and better, which of course turned out to be Snow White, the first, traditionally animated feature film of all time.
Yeah.
And there's this special feature on there which really just covers in depth that period of the company, and just completely captivated me. Not long after that, I found a book. It was a biography on Walt Disney, and it just completely inspired me. Ever since then, I've just been on this journey, I guess, of exploring and studying the Disney Studios, and over time I've researched everything from Walt's period to the Dark Ages to the 1980s, where people like Michael Eisner and Jeffrey Katzenberg kind of took over the studio and took it in this direction where the studio is now, which is multi-conglomerate entertainment empire sort of thing. Yeah. And I think just the whole history of the studio just completely captivates me from beginning to end. And I think a lot of people ask me, do you enjoy the movies that come out of the dark period, stuff like even Robin Hood or the Black Cauldron or anything from that kind of 70s to 80s period that's so different to anything else? And I always say, while the films aren't the greatest, the stories behind them are just as captivating as anything else. You have stories of Michael Eisner and Jeffrey Katzenberg coming to the studio halfway through them making the Black Cauldron, and Katzenberg tells them to cut 15, 16 minutes out of the film. And yourself as an animator would understand that you can't do that. When you've completely polished an animated film, you can't cut stuff out of it because you put so much blood, sweat and tears into it.
Yeah,
and the
exactly.
animators at the Disney studio learned that after Snow White. There were these 2 sequences that the animators spent months and months and months on, and Walt Disney put so much money into, and at the end of the day they cut them, and the animators basically rallied against it. They hated it. So it's always been this long-standing thing in animation that you pre-plan everything down to a T, you don't cut stuff out of it. I just have this huge passion for the company, basically, and I think there's all these wonderful stories that come from all the different eras, and I just want to share that. I want to share that knowledge I have, and I want to share these stories because I feel like we've gotten to this point where a lot of the older films have become not so much forgotten, but people don't pay so much attention to them as they used to. I had someone comment on one of my videos the other day called the original Beauty and the Beast trash. They would use the word trash to describe Beauty and the Beast because the animation was outdated.
What?
And I feel like, the animation is outdated, it's all drawn by hand, and it's like, well, you have to understand the blood, sweat and tears that went into making this film. It's just such a detriment to the work of the animators and the filmmakers.
Criticizing something that I mean, because it's outdated. What was it, a 60-year-old film? You can't judge it based off of what animation looks like today. And even so, things
exactly
that are
right.
hand-drawn today are even more endearing than all just computer-generated animation as well.
Oh, exactly right. I wish there was more traditionally animated stuff.
Yeah.
I just think it's just incredible the work that goes into it, and it's just So I think that's a big part of why I do what I do, and it's that I think a lot of the behind the scenes stories and stuff have been lost over the years.
And that's something that I really like about your videos. It's something that really drags me in, because I think a lot of people really like to hear that those kind of behind the scenes tales, and especially with how Disney kind of has a stigma today as being like, oh, they're taking over everything, they're this big faceless corporation. I think it's really cool to kind of go back and to the earlier days and see like the kind of stories that you're talking about, and you have such an encyclopedia of knowledge about all these really cool anecdotes about the history of Disney, like how it came to be.
I feel like there's stories that have got lost over time. I know quite a few of the bigger Disney historians through what I do. Basically, there's a big Facebook group for a lot of the Disney historians who do so much really fantastic work, and a lot of the things that they say, I've seen them talking about it quite a few times, is that they are starting to worry that there's not going to be a lot of historians in the very near future who are going to be retelling these stories. And these stories, I mean, there's DVD special features, there's hundreds and hundreds of books published about them, but you do need to have people who are there constantly sharing those stories for the newer audiences to discover them, I guess.
Do you think it's because the internet, do you think it's because social media and the internet, people feel like there's not a need for an actual person dedicated to retelling these stories, like a historian, or because they kind of feel like it's all going to be out there anyways?
Yeah, I think with the advent of social media or even the internet, stuff like Wikipedia, everything is so accessible, at your fingertips. If you want to know about the making of Snow White, you can go to Wikipedia and read a paragraph about it. And I feel like a lot of people feel like, that's enough. But it's really not enough, because there's such incredible stories behind a lot of this stuff. Or you want to know about the creation of Mickey Mouse, you can go to Wikipedia and read 3 sentences about it. Walt Disney wanted to create a character, and he came up with a mouse and named it Mickey. And I do feel like there is that thing from a lot of consumers now, which is they just want stuff quick and easy, and there might not be that particular want or need for historians or for textbooks, but there always is. There's always going to be that need, but the worry is how accessible that information is going to be, I guess, going forward, and how many people there are going to be continuously putting that information out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think too, especially with Disney, there's always going to be fans of Disney, just looking at them as a whole picture. That I think there'll always be someone who will want to tell these stories,
Oh, there will always be people, I think. But you look at the kind of, I'd say there's probably 5 or 6 really, really well-known Disney historians who are still actively doing work.
Are they associated with Disney? Or is this unofficial?
They do a lot of, I think a lot of their stuff sort of freelance, but it does get published through Disney publishers, so official sort of publications. So I think a lot of them will take their projects to one of the official Disney publishers, and Disney does have to give the sign off over that.
Oh, okay, I got you. They kind of pitch it to them.
Yeah, so a lot of people, for example, there's a guy called J.B. Kaufman, who is very well known, has published extensive text on the making of Snow White, Pinocchio, just general Disney stuff. You always see him popping up on the behind the scenes documentaries and stuff like that. So there are people who are very well known and acknowledged by the Disney company, but the worry is going forward how many, I guess, newer historians are going to be popping up, and how many newer people there are going to be to tell the story. And there's also what we've got now with digital, is that we're finding a lot of the studios in particular aren't providing the right budgets, or just kind of aren't interested in continuing to produce these special features and stuff. Even 10 years ago, when the Blu-rays were first coming out, we'd get these fantastic 2-hour documentaries. When they re-release the movies now, you get a new 4 or 5 minute fluffy little featurette or something.
Yeah, that's like one of the main reasons I still buy like physical copies of movies and Blu-rays is because of those documentaries that are on it. Like you see what it comes with more than just the movie.
Yeah, exactly right.
Speaking of history and historians, I want to talk about kind of the videos that you produce, like how I discovered you, I guess you could say, how I found you. It was these explaining Disney videos and the Disney evolutions. Man, I just got hooked on these. I'm binge watching them. I can't get enough of them. Can you talk about kind of where the idea for these videos came from?
Well, I've ever since I started my channel, I actually, as a relatively newer viewer of my channel, you probably won't know, but I started my channel under the name Disney Dave.
Okay.
This was probably 2.5 years ago, maybe, and I was solely doing content based on Disney. And one of the earlier things I did was a series called Behind the Disney Classics, where I basically wanted to go. I wanted to do one video on every one of the classic Disney animations and like 5-10 minute video on the making of those stories. So this is always stuff that I've really wanted to do on my channel. But I found over time that there was a bigger need for more generalized content. So I guess I branched out to doing more just general film related stuff. The 90th anniversary of Mickey Mouse last year, I had the idea to do a video which was the evolution of Mickey Mouse and how the character has evolved through animation over time, providing a little bit of historical context and background on his creation and the time period that the character was being created in. And that video kind of, I guess it blew up over probably about the space of about 2 or 3 months. I noticed that it was picking up a bit more traction. I got to a point where it hit about 100,000 views, which is, I've had videos that have hit 100,000 views before, but it's very, very rare. So if you see my channel over the last 3 years or however long I've been doing this for, I have something like 600 videos on there, and I reckon maybe 10, 11, 12 of them might have over 100,000 views. This year celebrates the 85th anniversary of Donald Duck, and I thought, well, if I could, I guess, capitalize on Mickey's 90th, maybe I can try and do something for Donald Duck's 85th.
Yeah.
And since that other video had, a fairly decent reception, I figured let's do one on Donald Duck. And that one blew up even more so. Had more views than the Mickey Mouse video in an even shorter period of time.
Yeah, I think that was the first one I saw was the Donald Duck one.
Yeah, that was only a few weeks ago. So probably about a month, maybe 2 months ago, I think I did that. And then people started asking for more. Do Goofy, do Minnie Mouse, do Daisy Duck. So I thought, all right, well, maybe we can have an ongoing series here. With YouTube stuff is you'll do a video that does really well and you try and do a follow-up video, but you can't managed to generate the same amount of views as you did on the first one. But the fact that the Donald Duck one did even better than the Mickey Mouse one made me go, well, maybe there's something in this. So the next week I did a Goofy one and that did even better again. And then people started calling for Pete, who is the oldest recurring Disney character who predates Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, that one was really interesting video too.
And that one blew up on a whole nother level. And that is, at the moment, that is, I think, my 4th most viewed video of all time, or something like that. It's this thing, like I said, you will do one video and you try and do a follow-up and it just doesn't get that same momentum, that same success. But this series has proven that that people are interested in it. And I'm finally at a point where I'm like, okay, people actually want to hear about the kind of stuff that I've always wanted to do on this channel from the very beginning. And I'm really enjoying the series. I've gone up, I think, as a result of this series, about 7,000 or 8,000 subscribers within the space of 1 or 2 months.
What kind of research goes into those? Like, how do you go about making one of your videos?
So basically, I'll start with the character. Really, obviously that's where it starts. You gotta find your what you're focused on. I have a fairly extensive knowledge of most of the stuff I'm talking about. It's usually something that I'm quite passionate about, or that I have a fairly decent knowledge about. So that works as the basis for what I'm trying to do. And I might take like dot points of what I want to cover in the video. Then it's all about going back to a lot of the old shorts, rewatching them or skimming through some of them, comparing them to one another. And then going back and reading about specific shorts, discovering what was going on at the studio at the time, what was going on in the world at the time, and what influenced these shorts, what influenced the design of the characters. I have got a fairly extensive library of Disney history books as well, probably close to maybe 60 or 70 texts.
Oh, wow.
Covering just just about everything you could imagine, from characters to films, live action, animation, the business side of the company, specific animators, specific filmmakers, all that kind of stuff. So I've got a fairly extensive lot of stuff that I can fall back onto, and it gives me an excuse to go back to some of these texts and read more extensively.
Yeah,
I can go back and find some information about Mickey Mouse that maybe I hadn't discovered before. So it is giving me a chance to be able to learn a lot of new stuff as well as I'm going on. So I can use my own knowledge as the backbone. There's this wealth of knowledge that I have in text as well that I can go back to as well. There's a lot of stuff on the internet too. A lot of that you really have to be careful about what you want to use as the basis for what you're doing, I guess, because there's a lot of not necessarily false stuff, but there's a lot of rumors and just misinformation that's been handed over.
Sounds like you don't even need the internet with all the references you have.
Well, no, exactly right. But sometimes you might find a gem here or there, but then it is always about having a cross-reference that makes sure that what you're saying is correct. Because if you say something that's not correct, not only do I feel bad that I've contributed to the misinformation that's out there, but you will hear about it from the people who are watching the video.
Oh yeah.
And you will continue to hear about it constantly. Actually, that's incorrect. Yeah, okay, yeah, sorry about that.
Keeps you on your toes, huh?
20 or 30 comments on the same thing. Yeah, I know. Okay, yeah, sorry. So I try to do my absolute best to make sure everything's like 100%. And like I said, I've got connections with a lot of the great Disney historians who are out there doing, officially recognized work at the moment. So if there's anything that I'm not specifically sure about or I have a question about, I can always fall back to them and say, hey, do any of you know about this, or do you have an answer to this or whatever? So I can sort of pick and pluck information from really everywhere and try to form the best, most concise piece that I can.
Once you have all the script together, what kind of work goes into actually like editing the video, pulling clips for the video? How long does that kind of take you to do?
I would say one of these videos probably takes in full maybe 4 days, 3 or 4 days maybe, depending the breadth of the material that I'm working with, etc. I'd say I'd probably put in maybe 2 full days of extensive research, which doesn't seem like a lot. I work for hours on end on a day. I might get up at like 7 o'clock and start working at 8 o'clock until 8 a.m. until like 8, 9 p.m. some days. So I do quite a lot of research over a couple of days, and then after that I will write my script. I'm usually writing my script as I'm researching. Mm-hmm. So sometimes, one way to do it would be to research it, pull all your information together, and then write your script, which is what I do on some videos, but I found it easy with these ones as I'm reading, as I'm learning, to write the script as I go along.
Yeah.
So at the end of that, I'd say maybe a full day to write the script, maybe a few hours, half a day, pull the script together and finalize it. Then I'll spend probably about an hour recording the audio. Then I'll spend probably an hour and a half editing the audio down to into the timeline, down to the length that I want it to be, and then I will go to YouTube, I guess, and download all the stuff that I need. So a lot of my stuff I've ripped from YouTube, basically, which is what you got to do to get to get this footage and stuff.
Yeah.
But I do have a fairly extensive everything that I do download for a video I will keep aside in case I need to refer back to it again another day. So I've
just building a digital library.
Yeah, so I call it my video vault, which is pretty much the same thing. So I've got, if I need to go back to Steamboat Willie, I already have that on the hard drive. I can just pull that straight in. But there probably is still a good few hours in every video of just searching the stuff that I need to use in the video and downloading it, whatever. And then once I have everything, all my material, I will render it out, which takes ages. Probably a couple hours to render all that ready to go into the workspace, and then dropping it into the workspace is probably the least time consuming part. It might take a day's worth of editing, maybe the best part of a day's editing, to just drop everything into the timeline, and then it's about spending a few hours just making sure it's all trimmed properly, color corrected. So it's just about making that viewing experience as accessible and as less jarring as possible, as easy to watch as possible. So I'd say probably a few hours goes into just making sure everything's presentable and looking nice. And yeah, at the end of the day, it's probably 4 or 5 days work on one of these small videos.
Damn. Yeah. Do you run into any like copyright claim issues with the footage that you show on YouTube? Do they ever like flag your videos a lot?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. I will get a copyright strike or two every week. The good thing is we've got as creators, we've got fair use laws to back us up, and as long as you can,
you fall right in there easily, no dispute.
Yeah. So if anyone out there listening doesn't understand, well, I guess doesn't know about fair use laws, it basically means, as creators, we can use whatever footage we want. We can use clips from movies, clips from shorts, clips from television. We can use other creators' videos, as long as we are using it for the purposes of education, review, criticism, etc., etc. There has to be a purpose that you're basically using it as an illustrative effect. So most of the stuff I do, you can just send a counterclaim back and they'll drop the claim within a day or two, sometimes within an hour or so. So most of the stuff I do, I can get cleared pretty easily. Some stuff, if it's like music, like if I do a trailer review or something and there's a bit of music running in the background of a film trailer and that gets flagged, it's almost impossible because there's whole different rules behind the use of music and stuff in your videos. But it's I do get copyright claims quite often, but it is usually fairly easy to get cleared. The only I had an issue with the Mickey Mouse video because I played a clip from Steamboat Willie for it's usually anything over 10 seconds will get flagged. So I played this clip from Steamboat Willie for like 12 seconds, which is him whistling at the beginning of the film. That got picked up for the music, not for the usage of the video, but for the whistling, which is obviously a copyrighted thing. And I thought, oh man, I didn't see that coming. So in that instance, if I've been picked up with music, I just take the video down. I just fix it, trim it up, do whatever. But I was with that, I hadn't published the video yet, so I was very lucky. It was like almost immediately. It was like bang. I thought that's not something I can win. So I took the video down. I edited the clip down to about 5 seconds instead of 10 or 11 seconds or whatever it was. Just used that and it's been fine. Hasn't been picked up. And then I did one on the vocal evolution of Donald Duck just a couple of days ago, and that got picked up again for the same thing. It was like an audio recording of, it was like a CD audio recording of A Christmas Carol that got picked up, and I did the same thing, took it down and trimmed it up, and it was okay. So there's usually a way around those things, but there's always getting pulled up on stuff like that.
So you also talk a lot about different Disney eras of animation in these videos. So what would you say your favorite era of Disney animation is?
If I had to choose one, I would say what we refer to as the golden age of Disney animation, which is the first 5 films that Walt Disney ever produced: Snow White, Pinocchio, Fantasia, Dumbo, and Bambi. I just think the story about how it all began is just so inspiring, just so engaging and interesting. And the animation that came out of that period, I mean, we're talking like 1930. If you go back and you look at the animation that was done in Steamboat Willie in 1928 compared to the animation from Snow White in 1937, this is not even a 10-year gap. It's extraordinary. You've gone from this black and white, very primitive animation to some of the most astounding artwork that's ever been put on film. In color, with effects, visual effects, the development of the multiplane camera. For people, again, out there who are listening who don't know what the multiplane camera is, it was basically their way of developing, to make the animation look as if you were viewing it in real life.
Yeah, parallax.
Yeah.
There's actually there's like a great video on YouTube about it.
There is.
Just search it. They illustrate it perfectly. Isn't Walt Disney in that video too when he's explaining it?
I believe that was produced by Walt Disney for he did a series called Disneyland in the 1950s and 1960s, and it was basically on that. I guess every episode he talked about, most episodes he talked about how they made the films and like the technologies that went behind them and stuff. So this was this enormous camera, 6 panes of glass, where they were able to move a camera through these panes of glass that were basically used as cells tunnels, and you could move through them, and that's how you get that effect where it's like, you know, like distance and space and
things farther away will move slower
yeah.
than things closer to you.
Yeah. So I think that whole period is just incredible. And the fact that Walt Disney was practically poor for the best part of his life, I think is astounding. You know, he didn't really make money for himself until they opened Disneyland in the mid-1950s.
So was he just putting money back into Disney? Was that the deal?
All the money that he made from any film went directly back into the next film. So he was living off one film after the other, trying to keep this company afloat. You have movies like Pinocchio and Fantasia, which were the second and third features that they ever produced, drastically lost money at the box office. Like, absolutely tanked. These are movies that we consider classics now, but they just absolutely tanked at the box office. And that's why you then get to Dumbo, which has this very simplistic animation. It's only a 63-minute film, and they had to strip back to basics, throw as little money into it as possible and try and gain some of that money back. So there's all these stories from that period where the company just isn't making money, and it's there for 10 years there, they are struggling to keep alive, going through different distributors. Walt Disney has a mental breakdown at one point. And then we have the revolt in the early 1940s, where hundreds of his animators went on strike because they weren't, making enough money, and they felt they weren't given credit where credit was due, and they just went on strike halfway through, making films like Bambi. So we got this very, very tumultuous start to this, again, what is today a mega empire. People think, they have billions and billions and billions of dollars. They can afford a flop or two. We had 2 or 3 big flops last year with the Nutcracker and Solo, a Star Wars story. But in the very early days, it was very much trying to survive one film at a time. Again, it wasn't until the 1950s when he opened the theme parks that he was actually making. He was fairly well off. He could get by. He had a comfortable house, very expensive house and everything, but he was living off the money of the studio, basically. And then again, it's not until the 1950s where he's finally, he's in a position where he's wealthy and he's doing very well, and the company's doing very well. I just think that whole period is just incredible.
Yeah, it is a fascinating story. All right, well, Dave, you got anything coming down the pipeline? Any sneak peeks you could give us? What are you working on right now?
At the moment, I'm doing another Disney Evolution, which will probably launch early this week, which will be on Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, which is the character between Pete and Mickey Mouse, which I'm excited about doing because I haven't done a whole lot of extensive research into Oswald over the years, so I'm excited to get into that and really research that fully. I'm working on a ranking video, actually, of the golden age of Disney animation. We've got the Dumbo live-action film coming out this week, so I want to try and coincide like a ranking video around that. As far as that goes, I guess I work week by week. I try and figure out what's going to be popular that week and do videos based around that. I usually have a list of like films that are coming out and try and pinpoint down what are the important movies that I need to cover, what videos can I do around it. So for now, I guess the big thing's going to be Avengers Endgame next month, which I'm going to have to put a lot of work into doing videos and stuff for that. Business as usual.
All right. Well, I want to thank you again for coming on the show, Dave. It was a lot of fun talking with you about the history of your channel and Disney.
Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure to be on.
Is there anything you want to plug? Tell the people where to find you.
Yeah, you can find me at Dave Lee Down Under on YouTube. Just search Dave Lee Down Under, you'll find me, or search a Disney Evolution video or something, I'll pop up. Yeah, give me a like on the video that you watch. Give me a sub if you like what I do. That's about it, I guess.
Yeah, go check them out. Great videos. If you love animation, you love Disney, you'll definitely be able to find something worth watching.
Great, thanks so much.
Yep. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you later.